For anyone who's learning a new language, the process can be really intimidating at first. It can be like looking at a big mountain and wondering how you're going to climb. Well, let's talk about this today and see how exactly the process flows when you're just starting to learn a new language. Let's start with being a beginner. This is the phase where you're most excited. I personally can tell this from experience. When I started learning Spanish and I went to the institute to learn this, there were tons of people in this phase, in the phase of a beginner, because that's when your enthusiasm is the highest and that's when you have the greatest zeal to learn a new language. But something changes later on. As we see, a person who's just a beginner learns a lot in the beginning. I mean a lot. Now I've charted the progress against time, and as you can see, the fastest gains in learning are made by a beginner. And there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that soon. As you come to intermediate, you put in more time, you put in more effort, but you see that your progress slows a bit. Now you're putting in the same number of hours and yet not getting the same return, wondering what's really happening. And then, if you manage to stick it out, you get to the advanced level, and with time and effort, you could reach native like fluency. Now, let's talk about why people go through these stages and what exactly happens. There's a reason why you're going to make the fastest gains as a beginner. See, when you're a beginner, everything is new. So, everything that you're learning is being added to your knowledge that's already there. Now, let me give you an example to make it much clearer. Let's talk about your vocabulary. Now, as a beginner, you have no existing vocabulary in the language that you're learning. So, everything that you're learning is being added to your vocabulary. Let's say you finished a few months and now you know 1,000 words. After learning 1,000 words, something happens. When you continue learning, there's one difference now. Your existing vocabulary already has some words in it. So each time you're learning something new, it's not going to be at the same rate you learned as a beginner, because now you already have an existing vocabulary, and every time you read something, there's already some content that you already know. That's the very reason why you're putting in the same amount of time and you're putting in the same amount of effort, but your progress is much slower than it was as a beginner. It's simply due to the fact that you already have existing vocabulary now, and everything new that you learn will definitely take you longer. In economics, we would call this getting diminishing returns on your effort. And that's exactly what's going to happen when you're at your intermediate phase. A lot of people, when they reach intermediate phase, feel like they've plateaued. They feel like they're not learning anything new. And you can fool yourself into thinking this, because the rate at which you'll progress once you reach the intermediate phase will be much slower. So let's say as a beginner you learn 1,000 words in the first few months. Now as an intermediate, in the next few months, it's obvious that if you put in the same time and effort, you'll learn fewer words, because the words that you're learning will have some repetition to it, and there will be some new words. So let's say you learn 1,000 new words in the first few months as a beginner. Now as an intermediate learner, you might learn, let's say, even half of that. Let's say 500 or less. So what's happening at this stage is your mind is trying to tell you that, hey, you're putting in the same time and effort and you're just not making progress. That is not true. What is happening is that your progress is taking place but at a rate much slower. And all you need at this level is a bit more patience. I remember when I reached B1 or B2 with my Spanish, I thought I was going nowhere. It used to take me a lot of time, and luckily I decided to stick it out and I was finally able to reach this level. Somewhere at the beginning of an advanced level, though I'm nowhere near native fluency, I'm definitely higher than an intermediate due to the time and effort I put in. So I want to tell everyone that this is the stage most beginners will find themselves in. If you ever go to a language institute to learn a foreign language, you will see a chunk of the students is comprised of beginners. Then people who stick it out go to intermediate, and then if they want to, they go to advanced. So this is basically the cycle of learning languages. There's no doubt there are diminishing returns and there's no way to avoid it. The only thing I can advise you is to have patience and make progress day by day. Track the new words you learn and just keep continuing. Now if you like this video, please share and do subscribe to this channel. See you in the next video.